Hello everyone, this is Dantas here from the Zero to Hero Academy. Over the years, we have helped multiple professionals either get into the Power Platform market or some of the seasoned professionals within the industry up their game within the low-code technologies. And we are here to announce that we have a special program coming up between March 19th and May 30th. This is the Power Pages and AI Zero to Hero Mentorship Program. Join us, click on the link, access the lessons. You know how we do it. Live lessons on Teams, and then the recorder goes up to YouTube and you can follow if you are in different time zones, but we prefer it to join it live. Connect, ask questions. So go ahead, invite your colleagues, your dad, your mom, your grandpa. Let's everybody join the fun. All right, we'll see you there. Take care. This is lesson 2. Altogether, it's lesson 14 of the Zero to Hero Power Pages and AI mentorship. Sheryl gave us a really nice first lesson on multi-language and a little bit of Copilot chatbot that is within Power Pages. And I'm excited for lesson 2. Thank you, Sheryl, for the content you're sharing here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm just really today's gonna be building really on what we talked about in the last lesson. Obviously, if anyone wasn't there, we recorded it, so you can go back over that. So I'm just gonna share a couple of slides. Apologies if I said to Victor, I've been unwell the last couple of days as well, so I'm trying to focus. But yeah, if I wander off track, please by all means just rein me back in. That's absolutely fine. So okay, let me just quickly share these couple of slides with you guys, and then just go over really what we talked about on Tuesday, and then what I'd like to cover today, if that's okay. So this is, as we've said, it's going to be the second lesson of 2. We covered on Tuesday, we covered the more basic elements. For anyone who wasn't around on Tuesday, I should probably start by introducing myself. My name's Sheryl Netley. I came to the Power Platform quite late. I've worked in tech for a long time, but I've only really sort of been doing Power Platform for the past sort of 4.5, 5 years. Started as what I like to call an enthusiastic 50-something, right? And my journey really was kick-started by the series of Zero to Hero that Victor did a few years ago when he began to do the sessions on portals, and I came along and I really got a sort of like a taste for portals. And I was lucky enough, after having attended a couple of the Zero to Hero cohorts, to actually work on a really big portals project for a government organisation in the UK. And it was fantastic, and I got all of those skills just from the Zero to Hero, right? So it's lovely for me, as somebody who has really benefited from this in the past, to be able to come back and share a little bit of knowledge. I'm not going to pretend that I'm anything like as expert as Victor or Franco or Nick or any of these amazing people, but I have learned a little bit, and I'd like to share that little bit with you. Okay, so because it was quite late when I came to the Power Platform, I have a sort of mantra, which is never too late, right? It's never too late to try something new. And even if you don't know much about portals or Power Pages as they are now, even if you don't know much, or you feel, I mean, it's really easy to be sort of in awe of these like people who are just incredible, right? But you can start out on your own learning journey and pick up bits, and quite soon you'll be surprised at sort of what you can achieve, right? And obviously the other thing is, we rise by lifting others. As I said, I have benefited from coming along to these sessions and all of these amazing people sharing their knowledge with me, and now, you know, hopefully I can give something back. And if you feel the same way, then by all means reach out and get involved. Okay, my contact details are on the screen there. If there's anything I don't cover today, just reach out, and you know, I'd be happy to sort of have a one-to-one or try and get some answers for you moving forward. So just to recap, session one, we talked about multi-language websites, but we just really covered quite the basics. We talked about why we might have a multi-language website, you know, generally because we want to meet people where they are, provide a better user experience. Sometimes there is a statutory requirement for us to deliver something in more than one language, and certainly that's the case in the UK, where we have other languages. For instance, Welsh, where we have to provide public services for sure in English and in Welsh, and I guess that will be the case in other countries as well. I don't know if that is the case in Canada, but you know, I would imagine that it was a similar sort of experience. We talked a little bit as well about how languages work within Power Pages, but also within the Dataverse, because you know, the Power Pages are built on Dataverse, and we use a lot of components from the Dataverse in our websites, right? And we use things like forms, lists, subgrids, all of which are created within the Dataverse. So we have to make sure that we update those for use in portals or pages when we want to use different languages. And we also have things like, you know, Power Pages components, right? So things like, you know, headers, navigation, sort of footers, things like that. And we have to update those. We talked about the steps required to create a multi-language site. We talked about enabling languages in Dataverse, and we talked about enabling languages in Pages, and we sort of walked through how to do that. And we talked about the other steps that are required to get those things up and running. And these are the things that I'm going to cover today. So we're going to talk about things like translating those Dataverse components, translating those portal components, and just and yeah, making sure that we've got all of those elements in place. And then we're going to talk about, hopefully that sort of will cover off the Power Pages side of things. Then we're going to move on to the multi-language bots. And similarly, last time we obviously looked at, you know, really real basics, I guess, why we would use bots. Obviously, it's a better user experience and we're able to deliver the right content at the right time. We talked about the availability of co-pilots and Copilot Studio. So, you know, we used to call the bot experience our virtual agent. We've moved to Copilot, and that has brought with it a whole bunch of extra functionality, because now we can use things like generative AI and, you know, all of that goodness to really enhance the experience, and also make it a whole bunch easier, really, because it's really quick and it's really easy to set up a Copilot bot. There's minimal effort required to maintain it. And, you know, the search for facilities are fantastic. And we walk through how to add a Copilot, right? So that was session one. If, you know, if anyone wants to watch that back, we did record it. As I said, for today, we're going to have another look at multi-language websites, but this time we're going to have a look at translating the Dataverse components, translating the Pages components. I was going to cover enabling table permissions, but I actually don't think that's required anymore, so I'm going to probably skip that. We're going to have a look at multi-language bots, and we're going to look at the translation for those. And then we've got a bonus feature, because I've had a bit of a nightmare with my bot. I don't know what's been going on, but I happened to delete it by accident today. So as I said, I'm not my sparkling best, but because I deleted my bot, I had to set up another one, right? And because of that, I had to find out how to replace my bot with my preview Copilot bot with an actual bot from the Copilot Studio. So we're gonna just quickly go through that as well as a, as I said, like a bonus feature. Okay, so just to say, as I mentioned, I've been learning this so that I can teach it on to anyone else who has an interest in it. I just wanted to thank the people whose content I have relied very, very heavily on to learn this stuff, and that's largely Arpit Srivastava, and a guy called Sanjaya Prakash Pradhan, MSDRM Tools, who have created a really lovely tool that I'm going to show you, and the wonderful April Denham. Okay, so I'm going to end the slides right here. I'm going to come back to them probably part way through this session, because one of the things that I'm going to talk about takes a really long time. So I've just prepared some screenshots so that we don't have to wait for something to happen. But for now, that's the end of the slides, and I'm sure you'll be glad to hear that. Okay, oh, that's my really ugly VS Code. Don't have a look at that. Right. Okay, so let me just find the thing that I actually want to show you. Cool. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to go back to updating components in Dataverse. Okay, so to translate Dataverse components, let me just grab my other screen. Sorry, far too many tabs open here. Here we go. Right, let's grab this one. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, last time we got as far as adding the solution, adding the language into Dataverse, right? This time we're going to actually do something with that language. We're going to look at what we've got currently in the Dataverse, and we're going to add to it, because obviously when we add the language packs to our environment, the language packs will update anything that Dynamics or Dataverse already knows about. Okay, so things that come out of the box when we deploy our solution, we'll have the translations for, because Microsoft and whoever puts these language packs together knows exactly what it is that needs to be translated. But obviously, when we're working on our solutions, we're adding a whole bunch more stuff, right? And we need to let Dataverse know what the translation is for some of the things that we've created. So for instance, I work out of a solution. I would massively recommend always working out of solutions, because it just makes your life a whole bunch easier. But if I go into this solution that I've just created for the purpose of these sessions, really, you'll see that it's got stuff in it. And in amongst all the stuff that it's got some tables, and some of those tables are tables that I've created for the purpose of making this Power Pages website. Okay, and Dataverse, knows nothing about these tables other than what I've told it. So I've given these tables names, I've created forms, I've created views or lists as we know them in Pages, and each of those could have a number of columns, okay, or fields as we like to think of them when we think about portals. And when I created all of those things, I gave them a name, and the name was in the base language of my Dataverse environment, which is English, right? And so that's all at the moment. That Dataverse, oh, no columns in that one. Let's have a look what we've got. Not in contact. Sorry, clicking around like a mad woman here. Here we go. So hopefully one of these tables has got some columns in it. I'm sure they do have columns. So yeah, I've created all of these components, but they've only got English. They've only got English names at the moment, and I need to tell Dataverse what I want them to be called in the other languages that I've added to my Dataverse environment. Okay, and how do I do that? So I go to my solutions area within the Dataverse, and I've select the solution that I have been working on, right? So actually, let me do that here. Select the solution that I've been working on, and I'm going to click on let me just do that. Okay. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I'm going to click on my solution. I'm going to go to translations, and I'm going to say to export the translations from that solution. Okay. Now, when I do it this way, this is one way of doing it, right? I'm showing you this way first because this is the sort of I guess the way you can do it from within the Dataverse. There is another way. Okay, I'm just showing you this way, and I'm going to show you the downside of doing it this way. And you can click on export translations, right? And when you export these translations, they will be exported for you into a really ugly, really ugly XML file, the likes of which we saw actually when I accidentally left my VS Code on the screen earlier. So when we export the translations from Dataverse using that Dataverse tool of export translations, when it's done its thing, well, I don't know if it's, yeah, it takes a while. But when it finally finishes doing that, there you go, it exports them into this zip file, right, onto your, onto your local machine. And that zip file contains I think like a manifest file, and the other file it contains is this file here, which is, wherever it is, there it is. It's quite ugly. I personally don't really like working with XML. I used to be, before I came to the Power Platform those few years ago, I was a consultant for another product, and this other product was it was a little bit ropey, if I'm honest. And as a implementation consultant, I regularly had to go in and update XML files, and just one tiny little syntactical error would mean that the whole application fell over, right? So it makes me really uncomfortable working with XML these days. Thankfully for us, there is another way to handle the translation of our Dataverse components, right? And I mentioned earlier, when I was saying thank you in advance, I mentioned a tool that we have available to us through something called XRM Toolbox. Now, hopefully you're sort of familiar with XRM Toolbox. If you aren't, it would be a really good idea for you to get a little bit familiar with it. It's really useful in lots and lots of different ways. I use it daily for things like the Fetch XML builder, or for data transporter, or for lots of different things I do as a consultant. But in this instance, when we're talking about translations, there's a really fabulous tool which is called Easy Translator. And we can use that to help us manage the translation of all of those Dataverse components that I couldn't find earlier, but I assure you they are there. And how we do that is when we go into XRM Toolbox, I just glossed over it there, but you'll have noticed that I searched for a tool called Easy Translator. Okay, in amongst all the tools that are available, and there are hundreds of tools in this thing. So I just did a search for Easy Translator. I should explain what I'm doing as I go, I know. And then when that opened up, what happened was it connected to an environment that I have already previously been connected to, which is my Zero to Hero environment. Okay, so you can, through XRM Toolbox, connect to many different environments within many different tenants, and I'm not going to go through all of that stuff now. But if you're not familiar with how to use this and you would like to know how it's done, by all means, just give me a shout and I'll explain. So I'm connected to my Z to H environment, which has got a really nice Power Pages coloured sort of theme. And once I've connected, what I can do is I can load the entities from that environment. So I can either load all of the entities, but there's a lot of them, so let's not do that. Or I can load entities from a solution. And this is, you know, one of the reasons why it's a really good idea to work from within a solution, because you can limit, I guess, the range of what you are trying to do by just putting all, all of your eggs in that little basket, I guess, right? So I'm just going to find a solution that that I was working on, which was that one, Campolingo. And I'm going to click OK. And you'll see that when I clicked just on that solution, the tool has just loaded those tables that we could see were actually in my Dataverse solution. Okay, and from there I can decide what it is, you know, I want to update in terms of my translation. So I could, if I wanted, just click on the tables that I knew had new customizations in. I actually could just select all of them if I if I was being a little bit lazy, okay, which is what's going to happen right now. So I've selected the entities that I want to do update the translations for, and then I'm just going to say that I want to export those translations, right? What that's going to do is it's going to do a similar thing to what our Dataverse tool did earlier. It's going to export a file that we can then use to provide the translated content for our Dataverse components, right? But the big difference is gone is the ugly XML, right? So if we export translations now, and this is the bit that takes a little while, so I've actually got some screenshots for you. You can see I did one earlier and it took quite a long time to do, but it exports it into an Excel workbook, right? So I think there's no harm. No, there is harm, because I want to be able to import this file. So let's not do that. Just imagine, just imagine that I was like, you know, saving this out to a file called Z2H_1, and clicking on save, and then close your eyes for just a little second, right? And imagine, by the power of imagination, if I could quickly find my PowerPoints. Here we go, and restart this slideshow,
Ooh.
and then whiz through like this. Hang on. I should have done it from where I was before. There we go. Okay, you can open your eyes now. So what that tool does is it creates a translation file, which is an Excel file, right? And as it's creating that file, as I've said, it does take a little while, but you'll see a screen like this, okay? It'll show you a progress bar, and it'll tell you how many entities it's looking at, how many entities it's like exporting, whatever. And then, you know, you'll see, well, actually, this is a bit early because what I needed to do first was I needed to import. So you export that file. Apologies, I am really quite not with it. You export that file, and once you've exported it, you import it back in. But what you need to do first, obviously, is you need to go to your file, which is in here. Where are you? Actually, I had to open it earlier. Let me just find it. There we go. You need to go to your file. There we go. And you need to update your translations. Okay. Now, let me just unfilter this for a second. When the file comes out into Excel, right, it comes out with loads of stuff in it, right? It comes out with not just the stuff that you've been working on, so not just your customizations. As I've said, it comes, if you haven't been selective about what you've exported, it comes out with all of the entities, all of the attributes, all of the forms, whatever. And it's a whole bunch of stuff that you probably are thinking, oh no, you know, this is going to be a nightmare for me to update all of this stuff, or to find what I need to update in amongst all of this stuff. But luckily for us, because we are, you know, we're very good and well behaved, and we work in solutions with publishers, right? What we can do is we can use our publisher, which is the prefix that Dataverse gives when we are working in solutions to anything we create, right? We can use that publisher to filter, as you could saw that I had done. I've slightly spoiled the element of surprise there by having it pre-filtered. But if I, for instance, just find, see, pre-filter on the logical name of my publisher, which is my initials and, you know, an underscore. What I can do then is only look at those elements that I have created, right? So you'll see on here that we don't need to worry about things like the, you know, the GUID, or, you know, what I've called it already, because that's already in there. What we're interested in is we're interested in these two columns here. Yeah. This one, which is 1033, and this one, which is 1040. There's another one called 1036. What these relate to the language codes of the languages we have installed in our environments, right? So 1033 is English, and as you can see, that has, you know, all the English translations in there. 1040 is Italian, because that was the second language, if you were here on Tuesday, that I had installed into my environment. And this one is French. Okay, and I haven't updated the translations for the French yet. If I wanted to, I could add them in there. I'm not going to try and come up with the French on the fly, because yeah, I'm not going to get that right, 100% guaranteed. But you can add the translations in here and save this file. And then, apologies, this is where I was going with the slide earlier. Yeah, you can import those translations, right? And as I've said, this takes a while. This takes a while when you import it. So you would select the file that you want to import. So that's going to be that file that we previously saved out of Dataverse, and we've now updated with our translations, right? So we'd select that file, and then we'd get back to the point that I was saying earlier about the how long it takes. And let's see from current slide. So when you're uploading that file, you do get this nice little progress bar. It does tell you how many entities it is working on. It lets you know as it goes along how many things have succeeded and how many things have failed. Okay, in the one that I did earlier, I got a couple of failures, right? And it is possible for you, as you're using this tool, to then go to the little link which says open log file, and you can go through the log file and you can have a look actually at anything that's failed, and, you know, and determine whether or not you're particularly concerned about, you know, what it is that hasn't been updated. Precision is out of range. I'm not going to worry about that right now, because I just wanted to show how to do those translations. Okay, and that's really what I'm interested in. Okay, so I am just going to end that little bit there. So that then really is how you update your Dataverse components with the correct translation. Okay, then don't forget that we are working on or working in a lot of the time the Power Pages sort of design studio, So what we need to make sure we do, because we're making all of these changes in the Dataverse, right? We need to make sure that we use the sync option. I can find my cursor. There we go. We need to make sure that we sync back our changes into our website, right? So just use the sync option and then use preview to preview the changes, and you should then have those things updated in your website. I'm just going to click that. I haven't actually updated anything, but I'll just click on preview, and then we'll hopefully be able to get to something and see that it's been updated with some Italian. Like I said, I've not got around to doing the French yet, but yeah. So if I click on, oh, not that one, because that's the actual design studio. Of course, my website's opened on a completely different screen. So if I go to this one, you can see that if I go in here and I go to view the campsites, come on, come on. Yeah, so now my column headers, which were previously in English and all sorts of other things, because these actually are Dataverse. This is a Dataverse view, which we've brought through as a list, and the headers on that view were in English. They're now in Italian. Well, sort of Italian, Franco, if you're still here, don't look, but you know. And if we go to the edit form, I'm hoping that's translated properly. If we go to the edit form, you'll see that actually when it decides to load, yeah, those things are now in Italian as well. Okay, so that's sort of how that works. Okay, so it's quite straightforward. It's quite straightforward once you use the XRM Toolbox tool, right? Okay, because that just makes it all so much easier. The next thing that we need to think about is we need to think about, obviously we've got a few things still in English on here, right? So we've handled the Dataverse side of things. We also have to handle the, as I mentioned, the portal or the pages components. So we've got some things. When we installed our Power Pages site last week, the other day, oh, it seems like a week ago, um, it did a number of things actually, and I'm going to show you what it's done in the portal management app, because a lot of what we do when we're talking about, you know, multi-language website is not really available to us in this design studio. We still rely quite heavily on portal management. So it's going to, yes, it opened it on that screen, hurrah. That just saves me trying to drag it around. I did say to Victor, I appreciate there was quite a lot of dragging around going on last time, so apologies for that. So yeah, we talked about last time when we installed our portal, what it does for us, our language. It actually does a number of things in the background. There are all sorts of plugins and stuff running that create additional components for us within our Power Pages website. So for each of the languages that we install, we get things like extra content snippets, and we'll see that if we go in here, I showed the other day, I think, yeah, so I'd created a strap line. When I installed the Italian and the French languages, it created additional content snippets for those that I can use to display that content that had previously just been in English on my website into the other languages, so that when the language is selected by the user, right, that the Power Pages portal knows what content to display. So for instance, if I go to the home page, here you'll see that this little snippet, which is that strapline snippet here, is displayed in English. But if I look at the one that's for the Italian language, it's here, and this is the value for it. unfortunately, I haven't updated the formatting for it, but you'll see that if I switch to Italian, it will show the Italian version of that snippet, right? Okay, and that's sort of how you can keep a lot of your content, or you can manage a lot of your content translation. So it's a really good idea where you have it's that sort of static content within your website to use a content snippet for that, because then it's sort of relatively easy to manage things like these translations. Okay, and similarly, you want to do the same. There are other types of things that get created by Power Pages in the background, as well as content snippets. You get things like your web link sets, and here we go, web link sets. You'll get a number of those. Created. Now, there is a bit of a gotcha, which I've discovered as I've been working on this, right? Yeah, it's quite difficult to work with this default, but this main navigation component, and add different languages using that default. It uses the default navigation. Okay, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to create another navigation so that it can pick up the translations, because when you are sort of like delving into these, what happens is it creates other links, right? And it's not supported within that default menu or the default navigation to be updating these things for different pages, right? And ultimately, you will want to show different pages, because one of the other things that gets created in the background when you install different languages is for each web page, you'll see that you have localized content. She says, there we go. You'll see that you have localized content for each of the languages. I would really like to be able to see which language is which in this list, I'm going to say, just putting it out there. Yeah, I think you used to be able to see that, but I'm not entirely sure that you can anymore. But yeah, so each of these relates to a different language. And I mean, it's great that we have the ability to determine the content differently depending on the language, because there are situations in which we might want to show different things for people, you know, depending on what language they're looking at, right? Okay, so I'm just looking at the time and thinking I need to hurry up. So that's really what we need to do if we are doing things like updating the Dataverse side of things, updating the Power Pages side of things. And if we do all of that, we will have our sort of pages updated. Now, I just want to quickly talk about as well the updates to the bots, or the co-pilots, sorry, just fumbling for my word there. Yeah, so when we are updating our chatbots or our co-pilots, and we did look at them very briefly last time, how we would go about, you know, setting up a co-pilot using the option in here. We set up the basic co-pilot, and I said that I would talk a little bit more this time about how we would equally get our translations into the co-pilot. And it's sort of the same as it is for the Dataverse translations, right? And I'm just going to drag this over here. I said I was going to keep doing that. Sorry, I was lying. So what we do when we want to, you know, update the translations for these bots, you see I've been playing with this quite a bit today, and I very stupidly called them all the same thing, and that caused me a massive tip number one: don't name your bots the same thing, because you will get yourself in very deep water, I can promise you. So what you do when you have created your bot, so Copilot, or if you use this Copilot preview, in here, it will create you, you know, a preview bot, and it'll be a really nice like generative AI type chatbot that's created in Copilot Studio. But it's not like the full bot experience, right? I found that when I was trying to work on this, but you can still do things like add languages to it. But I think if you want to do like sort of quite advanced stuff with it, I think personally this preview bot is probably not quite there yet, because it doesn't seem to be quite the same as the bots that you create through the Copilot Studio. However, you can add languages to it, and we did add languages to our bot last week. And so we just added the languages in. I think I added French and Italian. I think I've taken French off because I stupidly deleted my bot, and I had to quickly create another one. So I've just created this other one, and just to show you what you do to update these translations again in exactly the same way as we did with the Dataverse translations. We just click on this upload option. Sorry, I've just completely glossed over what I was doing there. I went to the bot. Sorry. I went to the bot. I could go to any one of these bots. I went into the bot. I went into settings, and then I went to the languages option, which is where we were last time when we installed the language. And I just found this little upload button here and clicked it. And you can see that I get some options when I do that. I can download a localization file as JSON, or this resx. I don't know what that is, if I'm quite honest. I'm really comfortable with JSON. I work in it practically on a daily. So I'm gonna, you know, download this localization file as a JSON file. It's going to save it to my local machine. And then I'm going to do pretty much what I did when I was looking at the Dataverse file. Now, as I said, I could have worked in that Dataverse file in XML. I don't like XML. I don't like editing XML, should I say. I don't mind fetch XML, but I don't want to edit it. Or I can look at my JSON file that I've downloaded. And actually, if I just find that file, because I've closed it foolishly, I'm just going to open that up. Excuse me. So as you can see, it's not as ugly as the XML was. It's really easy to read, actually, and you can. And I was really quite disappointed when I was trying to do this little bit of the session, because I'd watched something from April Dunham on YouTube a while ago, actually, when I just as Victor was talking about us doing these sessions, and he said, oh, you know, can you do something that, you know, showcases Copilot? And I'd literally just watched April Dunham do this really funky thing with a localization file from Copilot Studio, where she went into this exact file, well, not this exact file, but a file just like this, and she opened GitHub Copilot, you know, at the side. She actually opened the chat, you know, and she got it to like translate the text for her, you know. I tried that and it didn't work. It came back with a message saying, I'm not a translator, go away, go away and use a translation tool. So I can't show you that, unfortunately. I don't know whether it just doesn't like me or whether April has got something else installed that I don't have. But nevertheless, it was still really easy for me to get the translations for this, because within Visual Studio Code, we also have like extensions for things like translate, right? And you literally just highlight the text and tell it which language you want to translate it to. It's so easy. Once you've done that, just when you're working on chatbots, just, you know, as a tip, you probably only want to be updating things like the text, which is the thing that gets returned by the chatbot, or the trigger queries, which is the input from the person who's using the chatbot, right? So obviously, the chatbot needs to be able to understand the language of the person who's using it, and needs to return those the responses in the language that the person is expecting to be able to use, right? And the way it works, actually, the chatbot, is that it detects the browser language of the person who's using the chatbot, right? So you would expect probably that somebody who wanted to read a website in Italian had their browser language set to Italian, right? Because that would probably be their first language. So that's kind of okay. I would like, personally, I think, to be able to control that from within the site itself. I don't know whether I would, but I'm saying I would. Maybe it is good that we leave it to the user to decide. I don't know. Anyway, once we've updated this file, then we can save it and we can go back to our Copilot Studio, and we can just browse to that file and we can upload it in pretty much the same way that we did with our Dataverse translation file, right? Again, this takes a little while, so I'm not going to actually do it, because you'll just be sat there watching a little spinning disk. But it literally just uploads that file and reads the values that we've provided to it in here, okay, and applies them quite well, actually, to the chatbot. Now, unfortunately, because I deleted my chatbot earlier, I think I can show you some of what it does, but yeah, there's a very good reason why you're asked if you're absolutely sure that you want to delete something, and it is exactly for the reason, or for the sort of situation that I now find myself in, where I've deleted my lovely Italian chatbot. But that's sort of how it works, and I will just quickly show. Where is my website there? So at the moment, I think my chatbot's okay. So I've got some Italian down here, and it's because I've probably got in my settings, because I've been messing around with this for ages. So the browser settings here. Oh, it shouldn't be in Italian. That should be in English. Let me just refresh that. Saying that's Campolingo bot. As I said, rule number one: don't name your bots the same sort of thing, because it becomes a bit of a nightmare to know which one you're updating. But yeah, generally, the chatbot will determine which language to present in based on the browser setting that somebody has as their preferred language. Okay. And normally, if somebody hadn't deleted all all of their translations, it would speak to them in that language as well. Okay. So that's pretty much about it. Apologies for having deleted my lovely bot so that I can't show you actually speaking Italian, but I can assure you that it certainly does. And I've been threatening maybe, to get some content out on YouTube and via my blog. And yeah, what I'll do over the next couple of days is resolve my technical glitch and attempt to get that out, so that I can actually show you it working in its actual glory, because it is, all of this stuff is like really easy, well, relatively easy, as long as you don't go deleting things that you shouldn't delete, is actually really easy to do, and just gives you great results, great results relatively in a sort of straightforward way. So anyway, that's all I have to say. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. happy to answer or try to answer any questions. And I can see there are some really amazing people on the call. I'm glad I couldn't see before now who was here because I definitely wouldn't have got to this time. But yeah, if there are any questions, then yeah. Let's see. Let me just open the XML and Excel. Yeah, good question, Franco. Looked at that earlier and I couldn't, like, I wasn't able to do it, but that could just have been that, I was not thinking about things the right way. Um, yeah. Is there any other questions at all?
I don't have a question per se. If anybody has a question, they can unmute and ask. But one comment I would like to make is I've seen implementations of portals where folks didn't want to do the hard work to do the translations and add as content to the website, like you showed. And what they resorted to was the Google add-on that you put at top of a page and then it can do the translation for you. Uh,
Yeah.
that I don't want to say it works. I mean, the mechanics of it works. You can make it, you can implement that on your site, but then you have no control of the content. Like Cheryl mentioned, there are things that mean different things. Like, for example, Power Pages, the name of the product, I think it was wrongly translated to Portuguese and it made to Microsoft's website as the name like a group pop music group in Brazil. So people were making fun of it. So you won't have any control of what's presented if you resort to a plugin like Google Translate or anything of sorts, right? So if this is an official website, be it for a corporation or for a government agency, I'd say take the time to implement it using, the content snippets for translation, the language, the actual language setup that Power Pages provides.
Yeah, I mean, I did talk a lot about probably a little bit too much about that on Tuesday, about my woes having. I've been trying to book a big holiday, and it's sort of like involves touring around Europe, and I've been using lots of different websites and with varying success. And one of the websites that I really, really, really was relying on was telling me about compliance with motoring rules, right? Because I'm driving and I don't want to get into trouble with the police, when I'm driving around, and I don't want to get fined. And so I'm trying to do things the right way. But because this website was in, I think the original website was in maybe German, because it was a Swiss website, but they were speaking like, it's German. It really, the context of what they were saying really didn't translate well through Google Translate, right? Because obviously that's the first thing you do. You just use that tool to just translate. And I I went down a proper rabbit hole trying to figure out what they were trying to say in some cases. And if that had been a commercial website, if that had been a commercial organization, they'd have lost me at that point, because I would have
Yeah.
just gone somewhere else, somewhere that made it a lot easier for me to do business with them, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and I think that's the thing about meeting people where they are, and doing what you can to keep like I said, I used to work in I've worked in IT for a long time. When I used to work in IT support, and used to code, actually used to write applications. We had this saying, keep it simple, right? It's the KISS principle, because make things easy for people. Otherwise, you're just going to lose them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you already have you have the language uh, differences, but also you have the regional context for the language itself. I find it that a lot of times I'm talking with my teenagers here, and I don't know about. But that's my own problem. There is no Google Translate for that. I need to learn those
True.
things. So
True that. I mean, when something's sick, it means it's like really good. But I tell me, I've been feeling sick the last couple of days, and I haven't felt good at all. I
there you
can
go.
tell you that.
There you go. My over the house, the last one I heard was, "This is so out of pocket." Uh, whatever that means. And I try to be cool and use the terminology, but they said no, you can't really use in this particular situations. But anyways, and yeah, thank you so much, Cheryl,
You're
for your
welcome. You're
time.
welcome.
Like Cheryl said, we have all the recordings for all lessons available in YouTube. So this one's going to be available later on tonight. You can catch up if you haven't watched the first lesson on multi-language setup for Power Pages. Next week, if I'm not mistaken, we have Nicholas Hayduke. He's going to be talking about how to generate content for your website using AI. And this one comes handy if you're doing demos or POCs. If you have to put something together for a pre-sales call and you don't have much time, instead of doing presenting bogus information on a site, you can use AI to give you more realistic content for your website, for your Power Pages website. So we have two lessons for Nicholas, and then I think, yeah, we have probably 3 weeks more of the mentorship, and this one's gonna be in the book. So don't miss the rest of it. Still have Nicholas Hayduk, Alexander Alashin is going to present as well, and some more. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next week. All right. Thanks again, Cheryl.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming along,
Bye.
everyone. Bye bye.